I have a nice chunk of walnut. I have some beautiful figured maple veneer, and I have 4 days until Christmas. We're up against the clock, but let's make a beautiful, beautiful box. All right, very quick backstory. My daughter had the idea, why don't we put names in a hat? Whoever you pick, you have to make that person a handmade gift. Sounds great. Chose my wife's name. Now my wife's from Minnesota, and when she wasn't wrestling moose or shoveling snow, her family would play a game called May I, which was played with 3 decks of cards. So my goal is to make a nice box that houses all 3 decks. This box is going to have a lot going on. It's going to have a veneered top, it's going to have dovetails, it's going to have a mitered liner. We're going to hand fit some Brusso brass hinges using nothing but hand tools. Lots of fun stuff going on. But the first thing I need to do is mill up this walnut for the 4 sides. The box is only a couple of inches tall, so I'm going to rip about 2.5 inches from the bottom, some really nice straight grain, not too busy, and then I will resaw it and hopefully get a really nice 4-corner grain match. Something my wife will never notice, but I will point out every time she picks up a box. All right, so here's the material for the sides. We open them up. We have our book match. I drew a triangle there so we don't get confused. Now to get our 4-corner match, we are going to cut a long side there, a short side, then a short side here, then the long side there. Now this is a dovetailed box, so a 4-corner match really isn't that essential. It'd be more dramatic with a mitered box, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to cut the sides using a handsaw just to preserve as much material as possible to make the 4-corner match that much tighter. So with our 4 sides cut to length and all squared up, now we just need to lay out and cut our dovetails. So in laying out the dovetails, I made this pin socket 1/8 of an inch wider than this one. So when we saw the box apart, we'll be losing 1/8 of an inch material at this pin socket. And this way, when all is said and done, when the box comes back together, all the pin sockets will be uniform. Now, one thing I like to do when laying out my dovetails is I take a business card and I add that to the thickness of the workpiece. And a little later, when we fit the sides together, the tails and the pins will stick out just that tiny amount, and it's much easier to knock those down. If the pins and tails were below the level of the sides just a little bit, that's a lot of material to remove. All right, the dovetails came together nicely in all 4 corners, except for what the f is that? That's pretty ugly. I'm thinking I wasn't paying attention and I saw it on the wrong side of that line. Not a big deal. We'll fix it with a wedge during glue up. It should be pretty invisible. And that's something I won't point out to my wife every time she picks up the box. So with the dovetails out of the way, we can now concentrate on the top and bottom panels for the box. For the bottom, we're just going to do a solid walnut panel. And for the top, we're going to do a veneered panel. I have this 3/8 inch thick piece of MDF. And to that, on either side, I'm going to veneer this really pretty figured maple. And once the panels are done, I could work on routing the grooves to house those panels. And from there, things will really kick into high gear. Okay, getting ready to cut our veneer. I'm just going to position this panel at a little bit of an angle so that the figure runs pretty close to perpendicular to this long edge. And there we go. We'll do one more for the other side, then we'll glue it up and put it in the bag. If you've never done veneering before and you think you might want to give it a shot, I've been using the Roar Rocket system. You can go all in for a couple of $100 as opposed to $600, $700, $800 if you're going with a standalone powered vacuum pump. What it does, you're basically using a hand pump to evacuate the air from the bag, and it does a tremendous job. Dirt cheap, great results. So very quick overview of the veneering process. I'm going to put some pencil lines down on the MDF. Then I'm going to spread my glue. I want to be able to see the pencil lines through the glue. That way I know I have just the right amount. If I can't see my pencil lines through the glue, that probably means I have way too much and it's going to make a big mess. Once the glue is down, we can put down our veneer, flip it over, repeat the process for the other side, slide it in our bag, put some netting on top so the air can properly evacuate from the bag, and then about 45 minutes to an hour later, we should have a nice veneered panel. Let's get to it. All right, here's our panel. Looks good. I'll let the glue finish curing overnight. Last thing I want to do today is the solid panel for the bottom. That's going to be walnut. So let me cut up that material, glue it together, and get some sleep. Now for that bottom panel, I'm going to use the same piece of walnut that I used for the box sides. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to rip 3 strips from this. That way it'll be nice riffs on material, very stable. I'll glue those together, and I think it'll make for a really nice looking little panel. Let's let the veneered panel and this glue up cure overnight, and we'll get back to it tomorrow. All right, new day, solid panel out of the clamps, sanded, cleaned up, along with the veneered panel. What I want to do today is fit the panels to the box. So we'll head over to the router table, we'll do some stopped grooves there, and then once those are done, we'll measure our opening, we'll cut the panels to size at the table saw, then back to the router table to rabbet them to fit inside the groove. Just had an idea for a little last minute design change. I'm not going to do a tongue and groove for the solid panel. What I'm going to do is rabbet the bottom, then just drop the solid walnut panel in. It's only 4 inches across, rift sawn material. I'm not really concerned about wood movement blowing the thing apart. This way I could conserve some more space inside the box, and that way we could lift out the card tray and have space for pencils and paper for scoring. Sounds like a good idea. Hopefully it doesn't come and bite me in the butt. All right, let's give it a go. With that bit of routing out of the way, one thing I'll have to do later is square up the corners with the chisel. That's easy. What I want to do now is cut the veneered panel to size. It's going to be the size of this opening with 3/16 of an inch added to each dimension to account for the rabbets. That'll fit into the grooves. Using a marking gauge, I'm just going to score where the rabbit's going to go. Hopefully that will eliminate any chip out on the thin veneer. With the panel all rabbited, let's see how everything is going. Slide it in. All right, things are looking good. When we set up our groove, we made it so that the panel would sit about 1/32 of an inch below the walnut sides. This way we could now, tomorrow, it's 10:30. Tomorrow we'll use a pattern routing bit and we'll bring down the walnut sides to the same level as the veneered panel. All right, good night. I cut the panel on the table saw, fine-tuned things with the shooting board to get a nice perfect fit into the bottom of our box. And now let's get ready to glue this guy up. Just about set to do our glue up. I pre-finished the interior surfaces of the box. So much easier to do it now than after the box is glued together. Have a piece of walnut veneer here. I'm going to use that to fill in the gap in that ugly dovetail from earlier. And I have my hide glue ready. I like using hide glue for a glue up like this. A few extra minutes of open time means that much less stress. All right, let's glue this up. After about 8 hours, we're out of the clamps, and now I'm going to use a plane to knock down these slightly proud pins and tails. Then after that, off to the router table to do some pattern routing. Okay, with everything flushed up, we're now ready to install some ebony banding around the perimeter of the maple. We're going to do this for two reasons. One, it's a nice design detail, and another reason, it's going to conceal any hairline gaps between the veneered panel and the walnut. Before we work on the ebony inlay, I just want to separate the lid from the box. I have a tall fence set up, a thin curved blade installed in the saw, and I'll be sawing right through that wide pin that I made earlier. So 4 quick cuts and we'll have ourselves a lid. All right, now let's knock out the banding. I ripped some narrow strips at the table saw. So what I'm going to do is mark them for length. I will then miter the ends carefully on the shooting board, and then we'll glue them into place. And once the glue is set, we'll use the card scraper to level everything out. One thing I did earlier was pre-finish the maple panel because ebony dust and maple, not a good mix. It'll get into the pores and you'll never get it out. So by pre-finishing, we can just wipe it away when we're done. I'm going to make a small lift for the lid out of this piece of ebony, and I'll just mortise it right into the lip of the lid. When fitting the hinges, I like to position them in place using double-sided tape before I mark around them with a knife. I'm going to mark the locations for the lid portion of the hinges, because if they're not lined up correctly, the lid will not operate smoothly. With the hinges out of the way, I'm making a mitered liner for the bottom of the box and a tray for the playing cards that will rest on top of the liner. And with small parts like this, I'll often forego the table saw altogether and do the miters with shooting boards and my jack plane. All right, we're just about at the finish line. All the exterior surfaces have been sanded to 1200 grit. I find with this product, Osmo Top Oil, that gives me a very nice level of gloss. And with a small project like this, I'm not afraid of going a little bit on the shiny side. I'm gonna buff on 3 coats, wait 8 hours between each coat, attach the hinges, and we'll be done. And after 3 coats of finish, we have a silky smooth surface, a nice level of gloss without looking like plastic, and not a speck of dust in the piece. And on the top, we have a nice contrast between the tiger maple, the ebony, and the walnut, and the oil finish really did a nice job bringing the tiger maple to life. Now let's attach the hinges and get this box to its new owner just in time for Christmas of 2024. Yeah, it's January 8th. Life got in the way. Sorry, honey. And that's a wrap. Had a great time making this box. A small project like this is a great way for honing old skills, or better yet, trying out some new techniques. Thank you so much for watching, it's really appreciated. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. I plan on building a lot more stuff in the new year. Any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'll be glad to answer each and every one. With that said, until the next video, be well and take care.